Good morning, Leah Goujon here. It is Friday, May the 26th. So we are the end of week number 7 of my construction project in the Dominican Republic. So today's video, I want to talk about electrical. More the design process, the planning, and the actual installation of the electrical. So there's a couple of different methods that you will see used here depending on the size of the project and the complexity. So typically before the floor is poured, they will run all of the lines for the electrical, and they'll usually run a lot of those in plastic PVC conduit. This allows for running lines in the future without having to break up concrete floors, and they end up running channels up through the walls. Now, some of those channels were constructed prior to, like as the walls were being built, and other times they're chipped out, installed, and then re-concreted. So this video I'm going to make in 2 parts. So the first part, we're just going to talk a little bit about planning, and then the second part will be on site. It's a little bit louder on site, so I wanted to do this part here in the house. So as far as electrical planning goes, here in the Dominican Republic, you don't have to have an approved electrical plan from an electrician in order to do your project. But I do recommend it. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that an electrician does it. I guess it depends on your own level of confidence and how you feel about, like if you're like me and you've lived in enough houses, you have a pretty good idea of knowing where you need electrical outlets and where you need switches and what kind of lights you want. And because this is a house that I'm custom building and the apartments, for me it's easy to, as I'm imagining the project, I'm imagining, of course, where all the lighting is and all the electrical. And I'm imagining the future uses as well for these spaces, particularly to commercial spaces. So I want to make sure that there's lots of electrical available no matter what the end user uses those 2 spaces for. So that was something that I had to keep in mind. So for me, I find it quite easy just to kind of do my own drawings, and I use graph paper. So I just purchase these little books that are just full of graph paper. So this is what I use, and then I just can draw. It's somewhat to scale. I think when I'm doing it, I usually just use like 1 square is either a square foot or a square meter, depending on am I drawing the whole project on 1 piece of paper or just 1 room? So that, is kind of depends on the scale that I need. And drawing to scale allows me to know exactly where I'm going to, for instance, place a bed if I want to have lights on either side of the bed. So then what kind of lights am I going to have? Hanging pendant lighting or plug-in lighting? Do I need overhead lighting? So these are all the things that I had to think about ahead of time. So what I did was I literally just went into my little book and I drew up each space. So I started with the colmado, for instance. So I did my own little chart here. So I did go online just to look at what some of the universal symbols are for electrical. I just think it's easier if I'm dealing with an electrician to use some sort of universal symbol that he recognizes. I couldn't find specific symbols that were used here in the Dominican Republic, so I just went ahead and used universal symbols, but then I created a legend on the side. And I also color coordinated it, so it made it really easy to understand. So, and all I planned was exactly where I wanted lights and what type of lighting and where I wanted outlets. So it's up to the electrician then to take my plan and to figure out where I need switches. So if I have outlets here and overhead lighting here and overhead lighting there, where do I need switches? Do I need 1-way switches or 2-way switches? So that's up to the electrician. For me, this was what was important, was knowing exactly what kind of ceiling fans I want. Do I want lights in them? you know, with the Colmado, we wanted lots of airflow. We obviously need this space over here is probably going to be some sort of little bakery or cafe. So I wanted lots of outlets along the one wall, and of course outlets on either side on this side. So again, it just came down to, okay, how am I going to use each space, and you know, what's it going to look like? Here's the house that I did. So you can see I kind of planned, okay, well, this is where I would have a bed, so this is where I want overhead lighting. There's some stairs here. This is the bathroom. You know, this is where I would plug in something in the bathroom. So it's really common sense. So an electrical plan isn't hard. It's actually quite simple. And, you know, it's not fancy or professional, but it's legible. And I know that both my builder and the electrician and the engineer are using it, because I've been on site since they've started the electrical, and I've asked all of them, show me the plan that you're working from, and they all have a photo of this on their phone. So they're all working from my plan that I've drawn. And clearly it's been easy for them because they've had zero questions. I was there 2 days ago, and all of the areas that they've marked out is exactly what I've put on the plan. So clearly what I've drawn out was easy to follow. And that's really all you need to do. And so it's not that hard. Plumbing is much the same, but we'll talk about that in a different video. So I'm going to end this little section of the video, and we'll continue on site, and we'll take a look and see exactly how they're installing all of this electrical. That plastic tubing will be used as conduit for the electrical lines. So he's running for 2 switches, so they'll be both be double switches. So he's put in the switch boxes, and he's just running the lines. So the electrical will get done after, but they'll just fill all that in, that whole channel. Like that. So just take a quick look. This is the wall of the kitchen. So this will be the kitchen counter. So you've got plugs that are up high. That's a switch box. This will be for an appliance. For plugs above the counter, plugs below, that'll be for the stove. So this one will be a plug above the counter, an outlet, and this will be an outlet for the stove, outlet for the fridge. Sorry, outlet above the counter, outlet for the fridge. So behind me will be an island, and in the island will be the sink. So the island will have plumbing going to it, as well as electrical. The opposite wall is the TV wall. So we have switches here, all double switches, going to the garage, going into the living room, and also for outside, as well as outlets below for television, etc. So you can see these ones have already been chipped out, all the plastic tubing put in, and then filled back in. So they'll get, once it's hard, they'll get sanded and cemented. And then all the electrical lines will get run. So that's electrical here. That's how it gets done. Here you can see single pole and double pole boxes. So I just want to finish up today's electrical video. So the colmado is where they're furthest ahead. The roof is there, the forms have been removed, and all of the electrical spaces have gone in. Here in the house, all the conduit has started to go into the walls, and then the walls resealed up. So one of the things that I started doing today is literally comparing my drawing to exactly where they've put things. And I'm gonna say for the most part, it's exactly where it is on my drawing. And if they've changed it, I can see why. Most of it was just space, where I wanted 8 lights going down the walkway, 7 was actually sufficient spacing. So he's used a little bit of common sense, which is fine. In everything that I looked at today, there was only one, I wanted some wall sconces at the front of the building, and there isn't any there. So I want to talk to him about that because it is the front of the colmado. Obviously lighting is going to be very important. Now there is overhead lighting, so I guess maybe it isn't a discussion whether that lighting coming down is going to be okay, because it won't be lighting up any of the front gardens at all, where sconce lighting would light up the walkway and the garden. So it's something that we need to discuss and I'll think about. But anyway, that's it for electrical for today.